I wasn't sure what jersey to wear for this, so I went with the one that Jerome McGinley wore throughout most of his career. Calgary Flames. And on the left side of the board are the following, and these are all listed. I went through various sources. Caleb Jones, Matthew Joseph, Madison Bowie, Tyrell Goulbourne, Jordan Greenway, Nicholas Baptiste, Josh Hosang, Jamel Smith, Justin Bailey, Christopher Gibson, Oliver Shillington, Andreas Martinson, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Anthony Duclair, Darnell Nurse, Malcolm Subban, Darren Archibald, Seth Jones, J.T. Brown, Devontae Smith-Pelly, Ryan Reeves, Evander Kane, P.K. Subban, Wayne Simmons, Kyle Okposo, Dustin Byfuglien, and Trevor Daley. That's 27 players that, according to the list that I was able to find, are black players who were still active this past season. So that is just active players as of this past season. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And based on yesterday's video where I was talking about Evander Kane, and I said, basically, hey, don't get triggered by the whole social media thing. Don't step into that trap. And there was people who said, hey, making light of it. I'm not making light of it, and let's get into it. First off, I have this book here, which I have yet to get all the way through. I will, though, at some point. I've got a bunch of books I have to get all the way through. And this was a league that was black. This was the Colored League of the Maritimes. And the white hockey leagues would take certain things from them and deny them certain niceties, as it were, and eventually they'd get run out of business. But reportedly, the first person to ever take a slap shot was in this league. So that's, it's a spotty history the NHL has. And from 1895 till 1925, this league existed. And it's sad that league existed, but that's kind of where we were. There was no official, at any point in time ever, moment where players who weren't white were told, you're not allowed. But there was sort of an agreement that, it's white guys only. And there were certain quotes that I saw when I was looking this up, and I thought, man, I would love to use that, but I don't want to look like I'm throwing a player under the bus. Where some famous players were stating, it's basically just for us, and not so much for them. Whether they were saying that to press or to other fans or whoever, that mentality's been there. Willie O'Ree debuted for the Bruins January 18th, 1958, and he dealt with frequent taunts. And the other thing with Willie O'Ree, people look at his record and they go, well, why is he in the Hall of Fame? I've seen that. Why is he in the Hall of Fame? He barely played. There are some who believe that he would have played a heck of a lot more in the NHL had he been white. That as a player, due to race, he wasn't played as much, and he wasn't given the same opportunities. And it's been so long, we don't know exactly what his situation was. Thankfully, Willie O'Ree's around. Seems like a very agreeable, affable gentleman. And so, he is very open about what he had to deal with. He had to deal with a lot. And the taunts he put up with were pretty bad. And again, I'm not putting them on the board. That is not going on the board. And the next black player to play, remember, he comes in 1958, is Mike Marson, who played for the Caps in 74-75. That's a large gap. Now, this is where people will point this out. Well, black kids don't play hockey. They didn't. They do now. This is why we got 27 NHLers. This is why when I go and I watch the hockey my kids play, there are kids of different nationalities out there. There are kids of different colors. And when I throw meetups, there's people of different colors at meetups as well. One thing that really struck me in Vegas, and I actually thought was pretty cool, was that it wasn't a homogenous crowd. That there were Latinos in the crowd. There were black guys in the crowd. There was a nice mix of everybody, and I thought that is really fun. That's good for the game. And one thing, and I know there are people who won't like this, but players in the NHL currently have to go through what's diversity training seminar. And if you throw an ethnic racial slur on the ice, we know that you can potentially face a suspension and you will get fined. That if enough people heard it and if you can't refute it, then you'll get fined. One thing that I've always kind of and this is something that it's tough, because I understand that people are going to throw barbs at players, whether it's Subban, Kane, or whoever of the more prominent, right? If that's all they have, if all that somebody can do to make fun of you and poke fun at you is to make a comment regarding your appearance or your skin color, that's pretty sad. And so that's always been kind of how I go about it. And it is a tough topic. There are people that I've had to cut out of my life because they were racially just toxic. And I've seen it in my own family, and we'll get to that part of it, because there is more to this than just hockey. And this is kind of what I was trying to get at yesterday, and I guess I was inelegant in how I said it. So I'm doing a video just on this. Herb Carnegie, you ever heard of him? No? Gotcha. He played in the 40s. Played in the minors. And he was reportedly the best black player who ever played the game. Now, Conn Smythe reportedly said, and he didn't mean this as an insult, he meant this as a compliment towards Herb, "I'll give any man $10,000 who can make Herb Carnegie white." This man would be a star in the National Hockey League, would be a mega star, but we can't put him in the league because he's white, and it sucks. So it's not Conn Smythe's way of trying to mock or make fun. It is his way of saying, this sucks that this guy can't be in the league. I would give anything for him to be a white man so we can put him in the National Hockey League. And that's in the 40s. So there's no official, we don't allow players like there was in baseball. But there's an unofficial sort of gentleman's agreement. No, we don't. We just don't. The Rangers offered him a minor league contract later on, years later. And he was offered a contract, but under the understanding that he would play in the minor league system. And he felt that that would take him away from his family, and likely for financial reasons too. It probably didn't make any sense for him, so he turned them down. But that was as close to playing in the NHL as he got. Now, Grant Fuhr, noteworthy, first black man in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But one thing that was said about Fuhr too, in what I was reading last night, was that it may have been easy for people to forget that he was black because he wore a mask the whole time he's on the ice. So, fans and just in general, people might have just not really thought about it. It's one of those things you just don't, it just doesn't really register. Oh yeah, Fuhr, he's the goalie for the Oilers. He's black. Oh, right, yeah. And you think about it, you go, yeah, that's right. But yeah, because you wear a mask the whole time, right? Now, the reasons why it's tougher, and this is with hockey in general, and I can speak to this from my own personal experience. Finances. I grew up in a household where there wasn't any disposable income. So the idea of my parents putting me into hockey is laughable. The idea of them being able to buy me equipment every year, that just wouldn't have happened. Me having somebody to take me to practices early in the morning and all that just wouldn't have happened. There's just no way to have made that happen. So there's financial considerations, and of course you're going to see, like, for minorities, this is going to be bad too, where we can't afford to play. It's not like soccer, it's not like basketball where you can just go out to a court or a field and have a ball and you can work on your skills, right? Hockey's a little bit more technical than that. And then there's the cultural difference as well. One thing that I think has changed, so we're talking about a lot of players being in the league, and you look at Seth Jones as a good example, Pac-Man Jones's kid. Why would he go into hockey instead of football? Well, my first thought is hockey is seen as more safe than football. There are parents who right now might have put their kid in football 10 years ago. They might be thinking twice about it because of all the controversy surrounding football, and they might instead put their kid in hockey. Now, hockey has its own issue with concussions and whatnot, but there have been some ugly incidents in football. So I think there's a cultural shift that's kind of started to happen, and I think that will continue. Like I say here, right here, I put up times are changing, because that does seem to be something that's changed. For people of color who are looking for somebody to cheer for, they have somebody to cheer for. It's sort of like, and I put up here, the native players have been NHL players for decades. There have been natives in the NHL for decades. And, Jordan Tutu, when he made the NHL, he became an inspiration for his people as well. Gino Odjick, of course, was an inspiration to his I guess it's still tribes, right? Groups, the nation, their nation / tribe. It's fine. So there's a lot of them, and we're seeing, occasionally you will see player of Asian descent, Matt Dumba being one of them, who will make the NHL. And I put up here, there are Middle Eastern, Latino, and Indo-Canadian as well. Jujar Kara in Edmonton being Indo-Canadian, and I think there's going to be a lot of them over the next, I'll say decade, 20 years, because you have kids who move here from other countries and they pick up hockey. They enjoy hockey. And there's no reason not to. It's a fun sport to play, and it's a fun sport to watch. And I wanted to say this as well. Society is very slow to change. So we look back to the 1940s and the idea that this guy's a fantastic, great hockey player, Herb Carnegie, but can't put him in the NHL. Well, we wouldn't even dream of that now. That would be like Jarome Iginla never making the NHL and them going, we would love to have put him in, but he wasn't white, so we couldn't put him in. So that doesn't happen. So that is a change. It is a positive change. There are positive changes that occur, and it's always slow. In my family growing up, there were certain members of family, and I mean of different generations, who would say things, and I'd go, like, this is a kid, and I'd look around like, did they just say that? And it would be something that wasn't very nice about somebody who might be on TV, somebody on the news who was a minority. I'd be like, I don't think that's right. So I never picked that up. I would hear these remarks and some of these really nasty slurs, and I'd go, I don't know. And there were comments made regarding women when they started getting into politics that I would hear every now and then, and I'd be like, wow, okay, I'm not, no. So that's where things change. From generation to generation, I think things slowly get better, and that's the problem, it's slow. And what's happened now is that online social media has made it easier. So I come back now to what happened with Evander Kane, and somebody says stick to basketball. You can be anonymous on Twitter. And accordingly, apparently it's just two kids arguing over who was on whose account and whatever, and I don't really care. I don't care if they're my age, but you can be anonymous and just say horrible things on social media. So things that get said on social media, I always take it with kind of a grain of salt, because anybody can make a Twitter handle and just start spewing off whatever. So while I'm not debating that people are shouting at him that he should play basketball during the playoffs last year, the biggest difference to me is that what was being shouted back in the day at Willie O'Ree was more culturally acceptable. It was more accepted. It was more accepted that Herb Carnegie won't be in the NHL. We don't accept that anymore. Evander Kane is a very well-paid National Hockey League player. And does the league have a ways to go? Maybe. But I haven't seen anything over the last 20 years where I can say that players should have got a chance, but due to the color of their skin, they weren't. So that's to me where the NHL comes in. Fans, God bless them, you're always going to have a mix of different ideas and different leanings. And you're always going to have people who are going to say things to people who are different. And you're going to have people who say absolutely horrible things for really silly reasons. Honestly. There have been times where I've been at a hockey game and I'll hear a fan chirping one of the hometown players. And you'll ask, why are you chirping that? I just hate him. Why? I just hate him. He sucks. Okay. Sounds good. And if it's one guy in the crowd, nobody pays a whole lot of attention, but sometimes fans will turn on a player, and it's strange how that happens. But thankfully, when it's an entire crowd turning against a player, it's not for that reason. It's usually the guy doesn't play good defense, or he cost you a game, or something like that. I really believe that we'll see a time where nobody pays any attention. I do. I think that'll happen. And I think with hockey, I think it's kind of easier. So I mentioned with Grant Fuhr, he wore a mask. Well, all these players wear helmets. It is easy enough in game to just sort of, I don't notice. I don't really care. And I don't care. It really, it's not a big deal to me at all. Dustin Byfuglien is a good example of that. So, Evander Kane has said some things, but the odd part is that and he's Kane's very outspoken, and I know he's gone through a lot this year. I know. I'm aware that his personal his issues were off the ice have been tremendous. But Dustin Byfuglien is pretty beloved. They both played in Winnipeg. Byfuglien's pretty beloved. Kane wasn't. There was a perception that Kane showed some insensitivity during the last lockout, where players are arguing that they need a certain cut of the money, and the owners are arguing over what cut they get, and he's sending out a picture of himself with stacks of cash, which was seen as just being in poor taste and at the absolute worst time. But there's a debate on Twitter, because he posted a picture of a white sports player, I don't know if it was football or baseball, doing the same thing, and saying, see, nobody's going to say anything about him. To which I thought, that's a totally different situation. So it gets tricky because, again, we're in that era of social media where everybody will get mad at everybody else, and we'll all pick and choose. But comparatively speaking with where we've been, we're better than where we were. And it is getting better. We're in a situation where it is getting better, and I think it will continue to get better. And it is a battle for these guys, of course. I have no doubt that many of these men, when they said at the start of it, I'm going to be a hockey player, people went, you're not going to be a hockey player. And it wasn't because they didn't think they were good athletes. I am sure the whole way through, a lot of these guys would have been asked, why didn't you play football? Didn't you have the option of basketball? Were you too short for basketball? It is a fight, but it is a fight that guys like Carnegie and O'Ree, they paved the way for these guys to be able to make a living in the National Hockey League. And we've got a lot of kids coming up who are minorities, who are going to be pretty darn good hockey players. And I really think that we've seen a shift where a lot of Americans are playing hockey. And I think we're going to see a shift as well where it's always going to be a league where most of the players are going to be white. That's the way that works. But I'm old enough to remember, this is part of being in my 40s, I'm old enough to remember when you weren't supposed to have Euros on your team either. And everybody looks at Don Cherry now and goes, what a relic. What a relic, talking about Euros. Like, come on. That was not an uncommonly held belief in the 80s. That you would see a team lose and fans would be like, too many bloody Euros out there. We need somebody who's not those stupid Euros. And the comments that would get thrown at them were very not politically correct, I guess, by today's standards. Yeah, there was a lot of things that got said. And now that's kind of gone away to the point where when we look at Don Cherry and we hear him talk like that, we're like, that Don Cherry, that xenophobia, I tell you. It's crazy. It was not that unheard of back then. Society's changing. And I think the fact that we know that's wrong is a good sign. The fact that we know you can't just say whatever you want at a hockey game, that's a change from where we were all those years ago. So I think society in general slowly gets better. And I think you kind of have to drag some people kicking and screaming. But I'm very hopeful that we'll get there. So there you go. My take on it. And it is a subject that involves society in general. But when you look at the hockey world, I think the openings are there. That the players get more and more acceptance every year. And I expect this list to grow to the point where if I did this video 10 years from now, they wouldn't all fit on one board. I do. I expect the list to grow, and I expect there to be a lot more players. But Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. This is why I did the Toronto Arenas video first this morning, and this is why I'm doing kind of a fun video third today. So this one's stuck in the middle, and it's a bit of a heavy topic. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support and for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.